Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, it's National Kite Day.
Tony Kornheiser. Shout out Tom Kite and Greg Kite.
Greg Kite.
Shout
Everybody
out.
knows Greg Kite. Let me ask you something. When you were a kid, didn't your parents teach you how to fly a kite?
My parents didn't teach me how to fly a kite. It didn't seem that you needed a degree for that. You had a kite, you had a string,
Right, you flew
it got
a kite.
windy, you flew the kite.
You ever see, when is the last time you saw a kite in the air, anywhere?
Oh, that's been a long time.
Yeah.
But I don't travel in kite flying circles.
What are you talking
I
about? Is
don't.
there a sky above your attic? You walk outside, there's
Yeah,
either
there's
a
a
kite
sky.
or not a kite.
Well, in my neighborhood, there's not a lot of kites. I have to concede there's not. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Saints hire Dennis Allen. The Blazers trade C.J. McCollum, and Tom Brady says, and I quote, "Never say never." But we begin today with the story that Arizona Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray has scrubbed all mention of the Cardinals from his Instagram. Plus, Murray has deliberately unfollowed the Cardinals on Instagram and Twitter. Murray has given no explanation for this action. Well, but I am not a social media guy, but you are. So is this something or nothing?
Tony, it's something. I mean, social media, when you measure it by the two generations or more generations younger than us, it's always something. It seems like a little something to me. Kyler Murray, it might be a big something. But Tony, let me go to the relationship for a second and not dwell on social media. It has never seemed to me like it is going to be a long relationship between Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. And Kyler Murray can put up both numbers and highlights. He's done it. We've seen it. There were times in the first half of this season, just past regular season, where you would say, you know, I'll watch Kyler Murray before just about anybody else. He's not Tom Brady. He's not Aaron Rodgers, but he's more spectacular to watch than either of them much of the time. Yet, Tony, I told you early in the season, he doesn't seem like he's the kind of player who's going to be durable enough, dependable enough, consistent enough. I just don't see it. And he's got the baseball fallback. I see him as being like a 5 or 6 year quarterback in the NFL, and then who knows? And not with the Cardinals after that point anyway, if then.
So I'm going to answer the question as someone without any knowledge of Kyler Murray as a player like you do, being in Arizona, or any knowledge of social media. But this seems like a pretty big something because Kyler Murray at the moment is the quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals, and he is the face of the franchise. And now the only pictures that he is making available of himself on social media, he's either wearing an Oklahoma jersey, where he won the Heisman Trophy, Oklahoma, not Arizona, or is it an Oakland A's jersey because he was the 9th overall pick of that baseball team? And I'm not a psychiatrist, Mike, but I think what he has done here is basically said to the Arizona Cardinals, I'm not sure I love you as much right now as I used to before. Now, it's possible, Mike, that he's doing this for money, that this is sort of a threat. You better sign me. You better give me a lot of money. And I understand that. But this is so public. He could have done that with a phone call. He didn't have to do it this particular way. I think, Mike, that this is Aaron Rodgers not showing up at minicamp, and this is Russell Wilson telling the Seahawks last year, here's a list of 4 teams I will play for. That doesn't mean he's leaving because they did not leave.
That's what I was going to say. They didn't
but
go
it
anywhere.
is such a publicly provocative act. It's deliberately done so that people like you and I are going to talk about him. It's a slap to his employer, to me.
Well, Tony, it is deliberately public, but everything with social media is. But it also, and this is where we're going to part company a little bit because you don't care and don't dwell on the subtleties of social media, it might mean nothing. It might mean nothing by 4:30. This is the way social media is wildly, it's just back and forth. And if you tie yourself to it and make so much of it, it can backfire on you. But again, I don't think now the relationship between the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray is a long one. We're not looking at Johnny Unitas playing for the Colts here. We're not looking at that, to me, at this point.
I would just tell you this. I'd like to hear from Cliff Kingsbury because they both share the same agent. That agent could have gotten on the phone and made a phone call here. It didn't have to be public.
What makes you think Kingsbury is going to be that long either? I mean, Tony,
don't know.
This is not our daddy's, teams and franchises and leagues. These are times where people can play 5 years somewhere and say, hey, it was good, I'm out. The Saints have reportedly told defensive coordinator Dennis Allen that he's their choice to succeed Sean Payton as the team's head coach. Allen replaced Payton for one game when Payton was out with COVID, and he also went 8-28 in a previous stint as head coach of the Raiders. Eric Bieniemy interviewed for the position Sunday, the 15th time he is officially interviewed but not been hired. So, Tony, is the bigger story that the Saints are giving the job to Allen, or that once again Bieniemy hasn't been hired?
So normally, I would want to know, how does this happen with Eric Bieniemy? How does a guy with these credentials get passed over time and time and time again? But I'm going to be honest, in this particular case, Mike, I believe in promoting from within. I sat in this chair yesterday. I said it was a good thing that the Houston Texans promoted Lovie Smith because he knew the team and he would have a calming influence. There's no particular turmoil at the Saints. Sean Payton wasn't fired. They don't have to change everything around. They had a pretty good team considering they didn't have a good quarterback. If they get a good quarterback, maybe they have a very good team. Dennis Allen's defense was responsible for a lot of their wins. To me, he seems like the reasonable choice given this circumstance because there's no upheaval. And I want to quote Mickey Loomis, who's been the GM there for like 20 years. And before the search, he said, there's a quote, "The other 8 teams that let go ahead coaches, I think their situations are different than ours. We had our coach retire with a lot of really good things in place already. We don't see it as a culture change, roster change, anything like that," unquote. And so in this case, Dennis Allen seems very reasonable to me.
He does. But what's the circumstance for Eric Bieniemy? Where is it? Where is it? On the moon, Alice? There's no circumstance in the National Football League which calls a lawsuit without merit. But if you have to have a rule in your league that forces you to interview black people, then there must be some damn merit. So what's the circumstance of Eric Bieniemy? 30 interviews? 40? I'm not going to sit here and swear that Eric Bieniemy is going to be a great coach, but I know people have been hired out of Kansas City. The Bears just did it the last 5 years. They hired a coach out of Kansas City who wasn't worth a damn. And Andy Reid vouches for this guy. Every time I've seen Andy Reid, he vouches for Bieniemy. It's like Andy Reid has angst. You can tell Andy Reid is ticked off about this, that one of his lieutenants, a prize lieutenant, can go on interviews until the cows come home. He's not. So there's no circumstance. But the NFL, liars that they often are, they say there's no merit to this. Really, there's no merit. But you have to have a rule that you instituted that says you got to interview this guy. But yet there's no merit. God, every day. So I care about this Bieniemy, even though I agree with you.
This is exactly why. Right. This is exactly why Brian Flores filed a class action lawsuit charging bias in hiring, and exactly why he referenced Eric Bieniemy in that lawsuit.
Specifically.
But in this case, we
more
both
than one
think
thing can be true. More than one thing can be true. And I think that's where we are in this.
We move on. The Portland Trail Blazers today traded C.J. McCollum, the great complimentary guard to Damian Lillard, to the New Orleans Pelicans. This is Portland's second big trade. It appears to signal a radical makeover there. They got one big piece left, and that's Lillard. Wilbon, we know Lillard has publicly stated he wants to stay in Portland. So do you expect Portland to trade Lillard before Thursday's deadline?
I don't, Tony. I don't think they'll trade Damian Lillard. And Damian Lillard, yes, publicly, privately, in any way the discussion comes up, and I've talked with him about this. He loves Portland. He loves Oregon. He wants to stay there. He wants his family there. He is tied to the fabric of that community. And anybody there knows that he is beloved there. And he has said, I am not. Here's one reason why I more than like Damian Lillard. I admire him to a great degree. Because he's not out there trying to form his own big three or join somebody else's to get a ring. He's not doing that. He's not saying, get me to the biggest market out there. He doesn't do any of that. And people who don't know Damian Lillard ought to Google him, look him up, look at the good works he's responsible for, where he is in that community, and how he doesn't want to bail on them. And there's some challenges right now in Oregon and in greater Portland. So love Damian Lillard. I don't think he'll get traded because I think if you're Portland, you understand what you've got in him. And you're a small market, and you better do right by a guy who is beloved by that community, whose people buy tickets. So I don't think for a lot of reasons you're going to see him traded before the deadline.
I will tell you that this trade completely took me by surprise. Utterly took me by surprise. I think the only way that team can win is with McCollum and with Lillard. I think they're one step down. It's a big step, but it's only one step down from Curry and Thompson.
Got to the conference finals. They've been there.
Yeah. McCollum has been in the league for 8 years and been in the playoffs 8 different times. They're dissolving rapidly this year, Portland. This makes the firing of Terry Stotts look absolutely unnecessary. And the guy who stepped in, Chauncey Billups, it appears that his feet are in quicksand right now and that even Lillard alone isn't going to be able to reverse this. Now, I differ with you in this regard. If I was Lillard, I'd go to Portland today and I would say, trade me. Because when you said that he doesn't want to leave, he doesn't want to fail them, they have failed him as far as I am concerned. Yeah. I would say trade me right now because I'm 31 years old. And if you do a total rebuild and I'm 34 when we start to win a little, I'm too old for the whole thing. Bye-bye Hulu. Bye-bye Modelo. You know, I didn't see this coming to that Portland team.
They can't do it like Oklahoma City, where they just stockpile draft picks and wait 12 years, or like Philly with the process with 7 years. No, they can't do it that way. But NBA teams can retool and win. We've seen that happen multiple times and recently. But if you are Damian Lillard, Tone, they can build quickly. They have some assets. You can make trades. You can go into free agency. You can do some things and win with him. I hope he stays, and I hope it works because I like his approach to almost everything.
Let's take a break, but coming up, did Tom Brady open the door to playing again?
And who exactly is Joe Burrow?
Again, starting with our great friend from both Football Night in America, Football Morning in America, Mr. Peter King. What's the matter? You don't have Football Afternoon in America wearing your Ohio University alma mater shirt? Here we go, Peter. First question. We will get to the Super Bowl in a moment. But Tom Brady told Jim Gray last night, and I'm quoting here, never say never with regard to maybe playing again. In your mind, do you think there's any chance that Tom Brady could actually play football again?
I think there's a chance, but I think Brady was just trying to answer the question honestly. How does he know how he's going to feel in 6 months? As of right now, he doesn't think he's going to play. What events will conspire 5, 6, 7 months from now to maybe make him want to play, or for some coach he loves to call him and say, come and play? Who knows? All I know is that Phillip Rivers opened the door, and then when the Saints called, he said no. Drew Brees never really opened the door, but when the Saints called, he said no too. So I doubt we'll see Brady playing again.
All right, one guy we know we're going to see playing again is Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, who I heard people compare to Brady this morning, which made me want to throw up. But Peter, you have covered the league a million years, and you've spent some time with Burrow. Give us some actual context. There's so much hype. Give us some perspective on Burrow, the player and the guy.
Mike, I think the best thing you can say about Joe Burrow is that nothing really bothers him. It was about 3 years and 10 months ago where Urban Meyer sent him packing. He picked Dwayne Haskins over Burrow at Ohio State. Burrow had to go hit the road to find somewhere to play. I maintain that's one of the best things that happened to him because it toughened him up. And even though he was already a tough kid, it toughened him up. He went to LSU, played a better brand of offensive football at LSU than he would have played in the Big Ten. It made him better. And now I think, Michael, what I see when I see Joe Burrow is I see a young guy who's not fazed by anything. Sack him 9 times. He'll get back in the huddle and says, guys, we're fine. I heard that after he got sacked either the 8th or 9th time at Tennessee, he just said, hey, don't worry, guys, we're okay. And that's why the guys around the Bengals love playing for him. He's not going to be cowed by walking into a situation like he will Sunday in Los Angeles after walking into Tuscaloosa, pillaging Nick Saban's offense after going 3-0 in the playoffs this year. I think he's going to handle the situation pretty well.
So you think he's going to handle Aaron Donald and that Rams defense pretty well too? If anything is going to rattle you, you would think in that game, that defense, Von Miller too, could do that. But it sounds like you don't think that'll happen.
Well, I think it very well could, because it's one thing to be cool about getting hit. It's another thing to have enough time to do what you want to do. And I would expect that the Cincinnati offense, that what Zach, what Zach Taylor and the coaching staff is going to set up is the ability to use the tight end and shorter routes by the wideouts to get the ball out of Burrow's hands faster.
All right, we'll get you out of here on this. You picked the Rams to win the Super Bowl in the preseason, proving that great minds think alike. Because although I didn't pick them to win the Super Bowl, I picked them to get in the Super Bowl the day they made the trade for Matthew Stafford, and Wilbon screamed at me and said I was an idiot, and who's laughing now? So we're both with the Rams. Do you see them winning this game? Are you sticking with them through this game?
I will pick the Rams if the defensive front can really disrupt and upset Joe Burrow and his timing and his ability to hit his receivers. But I think if that offensive line, maybe even using an extra blocker occasionally, if that offensive line holds up, I like the Bengals. So I don't mean to be wishy-washy, but I'm just telling you that if Burrow gets the crap beat out of him, I'm not saying he's not going to be able to make some plays and play well, but I think the most important factor in this game is the Cincinnati offensive line, how it's going to play against Von Miller, Aaron Donald, and their friends.
Spoken like a true son of Ohio University, going with the Ohio kid. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
All right, guys.
Let's take one last break, but still to come, Duke drops one at home.
And the Nets looking at their 9th loss.
Of a decision, we'll know in 6 months. Never say never. Frank, do you believe Brady could come back from retiring after retiring from coming back?
Why not? First of all, it is his podcast on Sirius XM, so he's looking to generate a little bit of buzz. I still say, why doesn't he go to San Francisco? He's from that area. Wait another year for Trey Lance. Have Tom Brady be your quarterback.
Harry?
I don't think he's going to. I think that obviously you have to expect this from a competitor like Tom Brady, but I don't think he wants to disappoint his family and go back to playing football, and I don't think that he wants to go back to that Bucs, what's going to be somewhat of a rebuild.
You never want to disappoint
49.
your family. Frank, you've disappointed the family today. You lost in showdown. FaceTime, Harry Lyles Jr.
It is Black History Month, and I wanted to share a piece of my own personal Black history from my family. My great-great-great-grandfather, Joshua Lyles, free man from Tennessee, migrated up across the Ohio River to Indiana and helped found one of the first black settlements in the state of Indiana. It was named after him, Lyles Station, in 1886. And now if you find yourself in Gibson County, Indiana, or at the National African American Museum in Washington, D.C., you should check it out.
That's amazing, Harry.
Pretty cool.
Great story. Love.